Have you ever noticed how some people stop seeing humans the moment they gain power, and why that loss of sight almost always comes before their downfall? The billionaire boss in this story didn't mock a poor woman because she was weak. He mocked her because her presence quietly reminded him of something he was running from. And women need to understand this deeply, because men who obsess over status often obsess over women they think they can dominate. He believed money made him untouchable, so when she spoke with calm honesty, his ego translated it as disrespect, because insecure power always feels threatened by grounded confidence. This is where many women are misjudged. Silence is mistaken for submission, humility, for lack of intelligence, and patience for permission to be mistreated. The truth is, men who mock women in the workplace are not showing strength. They are revealing fear of being seen, fear of being questioned, fear of losing control. From a psychological point of view, obsession with belittling women often comes from a fragile identity built on hierarchy, not character. He laughed at her clothes, her accent, her position, but what he was really doing was trying to distance himself from the version of life he once escaped, and women should remember this. Disrespect is rarely personal. It is a confession of inner instability. When a man needs to remind you of his power, it's because he doesn't feel powerful inside. The billionaire thought his wealth allowed him to rewrite human value. But value doesn't respond to money. It responds to self-respect. And women who carry themselves with quiet dignity disrupt arrogant systems without saying a word. This is why men who are obsessed with control often fixate on women who don't beg for approval. Because independence threatens ego more than confrontation ever could. What should you do in moments like this? Do not shrink, do not over-explain, and do not internalize humiliation meant to elevate someone else. Observe, document, and trust that systems eventually expose those who misuse power. As a therapist would say, your calm is not weakness, it is regulation. And regulated people outlast chaotic authority. The billionaire lost everything because he confused dominance with leadership, and leadership requires respect. The woman didn't fight him. She outgrew him. That is the quiet power women carry when they refuse to let arrogance define their worth. Remember this when someone mocks you from a higher seat. They are already falling, and you are already standing where they can't reach you. Have you ever asked yourself why silence makes certain people uncomfortable, and why those who laugh the loudest at quiet women often fear them the most? In this story, the billionaire boss mocked a poor woman not because she spoke too little, but because her silence denied him control. And men who obsess over women often do so when they cannot predict or dominate their inner world. He mistook her calm for weakness, because in his mind, power was loud, humiliating, and visible. Yet real strength rarely announces itself. Many women are taught to explain, to justify, to defend themselves. But silence, when chosen consciously, is not surrender. It is strategy. From a psychological lens, silence forces insecure people to face themselves, and that is why arrogant men rush to fill it with mockery. He laughed because her stillness mirrored his chaos, and chaos always feels threatened by peace. Women need to trust this truth. When a man tries to provoke a reaction, it's because your composure denies him validation. Silence becomes a mirror, and not everyone likes what they see reflected back. The poor woman didn't argue, because she understood something therapy teaches clearly: engaging with disrespect trains others to repeat it. Men who obsess over diminishing women often confuse attention with power, and when you don't give them either, they feel invisible. What should you do when silence is misunderstood? Anchor yourself in self-respect, not fear. Observe patterns, not insults. Keep records, not resentment. Silence paired with awareness becomes unbreakable. This is how the billionaire miscalculated. He believed her quiet meant compliance, but in reality, it meant clarity. She was watching the system, understanding the people, and protecting her dignity while he exposed his insecurity. As a therapist would say, emotional regulation is a form of power that no title can grant and no money can buy. The louder someone tries to dominate you, the more they reveal their lack of inner control. In the end, his downfall wasn't caused by her words, but by his inability to tolerate her presence without diminishing her. Remember this deeply. Silence does not erase you. It defines you. When you choose calm over chaos, you outgrow those who need noise to feel important. And that is how women walk away whole, while arrogant power collapses behind them. Have you ever wondered why some people stop attacking your work and start attacking who you are, and why that shift reveals more about them than it ever will about you? In the story of the billionaire boss who mocked a poor woman at work, the moment he stopped criticizing her performance and began mocking her background, her clothes, and her place in the room, was the moment his power began to rot. This is something women experience often, and it is important to understand it clearly. Because when men obsess over women, they frequently move from evaluating competence to policing identity. He didn't say she was wrong, he implied she didn't belong. And psychologically, that tells us he felt threatened, not superior. From a therapist's perspective, attacking status instead of skill is a defense mechanism, a way to protect a fragile ego when logic no longer works. Men who rely on hierarchy rather than character often feel unsettled by women who don't perform insecurity, because confidence without permission disrupts their internal order. The poor woman's presence challenged his self-image, so he tried to shrink her identity, to restore his sense of control. Women must trust this truth. When someone reduces you to labels, it's because they cannot reduce your capability. Obsession grows when a man ties his worth to dominance. And dominance feels endangered when a woman remains composed and self-defined. What should you do when this happens? Do not argue your humanity. Do not apologize for your existence, and do not absorb shame that was never yours. Ground yourself in facts, in boundaries, and in self-observation. Document what is said. Notice the pattern, and remember that systems eventually listen when behavior exposes itself. Therapy teaches that identity attacks are emotional leakage, pain spilling outward when someone cannot tolerate their own insecurity. The billionaire thought humiliation would protect his authority, but it only documented his weakness. The woman did not fight him on identity. She stayed rooted in her work and her dignity, and that is what made his behavior indefensible. In the end, he lost everything because power without respect cannot sustain itself. Remember this: when someone tries to define you by your background instead of your contribution, you are not being diminished. You are being revealed as someone they cannot control. And that realization is often the beginning of their collapse and your quiet rise. Have you ever noticed how the very systems that protect powerful people can become the same systems that expose them when truth is finally spoken? In the story of the billionaire boss who mocked a poor woman at work, his greatest mistake was not the insult itself, but his belief that the structure around him would always bend to protect him. Women need to understand this deeply, because men who obsess over control often trust systems more than character, assuming rules exist only for others. He used policies, titles, and hierarchy as weapons, believing they would silence her permanently. Yet psychology teaches us that power without accountability always overreaches. The woman did not seek revenge. She sought accuracy, and accuracy is what destabilizes false authority. Many men obsess over women not because they are weak, but because they are witnesses, and witnesses make abusers uncomfortable, she observed. Patterns, documented moments, and understood timing, because silence paired with awareness is not passivity, it is preparation. From a therapeutic perspective, regulated individuals don't react impulsively, they respond intentionally. The billionaire underestimated her because he measured strength by noise and aggression, not by clarity and restraint. What should women do when facing power misuse? Trust the process without romanticizing it. Protect your mental health, gather facts, and speak when your voice can no longer be dismissed as emotion. Systems don't collapse from anger alone. They collapse when truth enters them consistently and calmly. His downfall came not from her rage, but from his repeated behavior finally being seen clearly by those who could no longer ignore it. Men who obsess over dominance often forget that institutions are built on credibility, and credibility dies when disrespect becomes visible. As a therapist would say, you don't need to destroy someone to survive them. You need to remain aligned with your values while they abandon theirs. The woman walked away intact because she never traded her dignity for momentary validation. He lost everything because he believed power exempted him from consequence. Remember this when you feel small in the face of authority. Systems may move slowly, but they move toward truth. And when you stay grounded, patient, and self-respecting, you outlast those who mistake control for invincibility. Have you ever asked yourself why some people can lose all their money, their reputation, and even their allies, yet never truly recover, while others walk away with nothing but dignity and still feel unstoppable? In the story of the billionaire boss who mocked a poor woman at work, the most striking lesson is that respect is the only wealth that cannot be stolen, devalued, or lost, and women need to understand this truth deeply, because men who obsess over women often mistake material dominance for emotional control. He believed that his wealth and status made him untouchable, so when she carried herself with quiet confidence, it threatened him more than any argument ever could. Obsession grows when a man feels that his power is challenged, and women who embody self-respect unknowingly become the mirror in which insecure men see their inadequacies. The poor woman did not fight for recognition. She maintained boundaries, preserved her dignity, and refused to allow mockery to define her worth. From a psychological standpoint, respect is not about fear. It is about integrity, and integrity is magnetic in a way that money and influence can never replicate. Men who mock, demean, or belittle women are attempting to acquire respect through force rather than earning it. Obsession arises when they realize that respect cannot be commanded. Women must understand that their calm, their composure, and their unwillingness to conform to someone else's arrogance is more powerful than any act of revenge. What should you do when faced with people who try to diminish your value? Protect your boundaries, honor your voice, and never compromise your self-respect for temporary approval. True power is invisible, silent, and unshakable, and it forces others to either rise to your level of humanity or collapse under the weight of their own insecurity. The billionaire lost everything because he confused authority with reverence, while the woman's dignity remained untouchable because she understood her worth internally, not externally. As a therapist would say, the wealth of respect sustains through challenges, betrayal, and even humiliation, while material wealth can evaporate in a moment of miscalculation. Remember this deeply. When men obsess over you, it is often because they recognize that your respect for yourself cannot be bought, bent, or broken, and that realization will always make them uncomfortable. Carry yourself with unwavering dignity, because no matter how much someone controls externally, the power of internal respect is untouchable, enduring, and transformative, and it is the only kind of wealth that truly lasts.